Let me know if you can hear the audio, bro.
He said, "Let me know. Let you know what."
Hold on. All right, do you hear that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, bet. Okay. We are live. Welcome to episode 708 of the Black Brain Trust. This is Black Business Talk. Today, we're going to discuss commercial real estate and the fourth industrial revolution. And today, I got my guest host with me, Ramil Amir. What's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
What up? What up, man? Shit, you might want to turn the beat down a little bit, man. But
Is it
what's
is it loud? All right,
yeah, it was kind of loud. But
quiet up.
yeah, just turn it down a little bit. But what's going on, man?
We good, man. We good, man. Welcome to the Black Brain Trust, bro.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. Let's get it in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, while I pull up this first article, man, what is some of the what are some of the things that you're looking at with regards to real estate, right? And your approach to it, right? Because what we're going to talk about is um, the revitalization aspect, right? So when you look at like a piece of real estate, are you looking at it more as just an investment piece? Are you looking at it as an infrastructure piece? Does it depend on what it is? What's your angle on that?
Okay. I said, all right. Uh, do me a favor. Turn that beat down just a little bit more, bro.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still trying to get
I,
the audio
I don't want that
straight.
to throw me up. But okay.
All right.
So, as far as what I'm looking for in real estate, me personally, I look for simplicity. I look
Mhm.
for easy transactions. I don't like a lot of fluff. I don't like a lot of paperwork. If
Mhm.
it's too complicated, I'll back out and let the white folks handle it. Because the thing is, complicated transactions, what I've learned, leads to more complicated things in the future.
Mhm.
Right. So me being independent, sometimes I don't have the resources to take on full scale uh
Like
operation.
yeah, like you're kind of more of on the independent side, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's why if it's complicated, I'll get out of it. That's why I'm at now. As I grow,
Mhm.
then you know, then I can expand
Kind
and
of
take
look
on
at
more
yeah,
risk.
look at
Yes.
more angles on this, right? Well, that's
Yep.
what we're going to get into now, right? Because
Hmm.
we want to kind of dig into this topic right here, man. Gentrification and neighborhood revitalization. What is the difference? This is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, right? So
Hmm.
these links are also in the description.
Hmm.
All right, so this is a renovated former tobacco warehouse, right, in Durham, North Carolina. There are many definitions for gentrification, which can make discussions about development and displacement confusing. Many anti displacement activists define gentrification as a profit driven race and class change of a historically disinvested neighborhood. Disinvested in this context means that businesses and governments have abandoned where there has been little new development or maintenance of existing buildings or institutions. Gentrification occurs where land is cheap and the chance to make a profit is high due to the influx of wealthier wage earners willing to pay higher rents. One case of extreme gentrification is the Bay Area in California. Man, you were there not too long ago, right?
Yeah, I was there about a few months ago, man. I
Yeah,
love the
but what
Bay.
did you what did you think about it?
Uh,
What did you see when you were up there, man?
so man, I was surprised about the Bay. First of all, I didn't know it was that it's a lot of money out there. It's
Oh
grimy as
yeah,
fuck too.
yeah, oh yeah,
Like I never seen a homeless. That shit look worse than Skid Row. They had homeless communities. Like these niggas
yeah.
had homeless fucking
It's bad out here.
neighborhoods. I
It's
forget a
bad.
homeless neighborhood. Like they had block street name. They had a homeless block. The street. They had addresses. I thought I
Yeah,
saw.
no, it's like legit whole like whole kind of shanty town type situations, dude. It's
Mm-hmm.
really bad, man. And you know, the media doesn't really
But is
touch
it
on
bad
it.
for who? Because I seem like they having a good old time over there.
Well,
They
well, dude, that there no, that we get into the whole politics of all of this stuff, right? Because okay, one thing that we could touch on, right, that could uh address that issue would be tiny home development, right? Tiny home neighborhoods and stuff like that. But we'll get into that, man. We'll get into that.
okay.
It's a one case of extreme gentrification is in the Bay Area. in California, which is undergoing a radical makeover due to the rise in technology companies replacing old industries and jobs. New people moved in to work for these companies and replaced the pre existing residents. Land values and housing prices increased dramatically, as did the pressure for property owners to get the most out of rents on urban spaces. Now, see, I think that's what you were talking about in terms of your approach, right? Buy
Mm-hmm.
low, rent up, take the
Yes.
profit, right?
Yes.
The Bay Area has become the second densest urbanized area in the country after LA. I can tell you about that place.
Yeah, that, I kind of think of it. That does make sense because but it seems like the Bay is worse than LA when it comes to homeless. Now I know Skid Row's messed up,
Hmm.
but when I went to Oakland, man, I just ain't never seen that many. I mean, that shit was
Yeah.
worse than Skid Row in my opinion. Maybe I'm off, um, but yeah,
Mm. Let's see. I'm just gonna skip down a little bit. I just want to touch on key points. Race is tied to class and power in gentrification. Most of the wealthy and well-paid in the Bay Area are white, while those being displaced are people of color, who typically have less income to bid for housing and are more often renters at greater risk of eviction. The elite can hold on to their claims to the city because they also hold the political power. There are always, however, there are ways, however, to revitalize neighborhoods without also gentrifying them. This is what we want to focus on. One is to use a positive development model that builds a new vision of community health and sustainability that benefits all residents. Community organizing that brings different groups to the same table to identify a shared interest and common struggle is key to ensuring development that empowers entire communities. Now, just a takeaway from that, the one thing that I can say in terms of shared interest, a common struggle, right, would be things like uh, food, access to food, right? Because in a lot of urban areas, you got food deserts. Um, the logistics side of things, right? Being able to move and get around to access certain services and things like that. So, in taking a positive development model, we're looking at, okay, how do we institute something new that's kind of that serves shared interests, right? That addresses a common problem or a common struggle, right? And that's what revitalization is all about. The development process should enable community members to identify the types of housing services and infrastructure that should exist in their neighborhood. The process should value longtime residents' visions of neighborhood change and give the power of decision making to community residents. A healthy community is one that acknowledges and supports the importance of racial equity, community, and culture. Public agencies can foster positive development by supporting a shared neighborhood vision and working with community institutions to ensure a successful revitalization that values culture, health, and positive human development, not just increased economic activity. And that's basically what most city governments do, right? They opt for this model right here, right? Typically through like things like taxation, and petty ass, like tickets,
yeah,
parking
yeah.
tickets. You know what I
So
mean? Remember Chicago, the fucking stoplight ticket?
yeah, exactly. They still going hand with that. So my thing is this. So this article, so they put an onus on the government to come in and initiate all of these changes.
Mm-mm, no, it's what is shared, right? See, because let's go back up to said the process should value longtime residents and visions. Well, wait a minute. The development process should enable community members to
Okay.
identify it, right?
Okay.
See, so this is see part of what leads to the displacement and all that is when people, if they just let the government do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. Because if you let the government do it, they're going to opt for increased economic activity, right? Over all these other things that people who live in these communities find important, right?
So how do you get the well my bad, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So my thing is, how do you get the people of the community? Because when people when there are communities that are displaced
Hmm.
and things like that, usually it's because the community members aren't, upkeeping. So
Hmm.
how do we get the community members to take on a more uh active approach?
Approach, right? Okay, so this is where we've long pushed. Um, like changing the institutions themselves. So like say for example in communities where you have like a rec center, you know what I mean? Yeah, you go in there and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a ping pong table or some shit, right?
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
some old dumb shit. And it's basically a waste of space, right?
Yeah.
That should be a fab lab or it should be a tech incubator, right? Where kids come in and they work on projects, dude. There's like 3D printers and shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's what you do. You take the building and turn it into something else that serves something else, right? Now, what has to happen here is that the people in the community have to feel that that shit is important, right? So much
Hey,
so that they push to actually say, no, listen, we don't want this to be a bullshit ass rec center where cats hang out, you know, and you know, and serve dimes and stuff, and just have a bunch of BS going on around here, right? This building should actually do something of value. Once again, it takes the community to go to the government and say, hey, we don't want this to be a rec center anymore. We want this to be this, right? So what we want is tax dollars from here and here and here appropriated to make this, and we want it to pay for this, and the government does it. That's how
so
that's supposed to work.
so do you think there's enough quote unquote community well, just I'll just say community. Do you think there's enough of that for that to happen? Because I don't know, man. Because
Um,
I don't know because the community that get displaced, it's not like gentrification happens overnight. Like this shit happens over years, and niggas would just watch.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it does, right? But see, here's the thing, right? Revitalization happens just as fast as gentrification. Really, all it is a business approach. We're talking about business that ultimately serves, right, what would actually be the change. It's going to be businesses and companies and stuff. See, so first of all, you do have to come in as a group of business people, developers and stuff like that. Like, see, so somebody like myself, I would I would get together with like maybe a group of other companies, right, that have a shared or common interest. So for example, I'm in micromobility, you're in real estate, I got a buddy Alonzo in insurance, I got this person over here who does this. And then what we do is we have like a kind of like a, I don't want to call it an umbrella company, but it's basically like an organized group, right? That lobbies. We go we go as a group of business people and we go over and meet with the the city council person or whoever, and we talk to them about their objectives, how much money we plan to bring into the community, and what we would need them to do to help us.
okay, okay.
That's how that works. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I see we got Mike V in the house. Let's address everybody in the chat, man. We got Toya. What's going on, lady? Good morning. Welcome. Incognito. What's going on? We here. You absolutely right. Aquateki. We got Dusty Shackford. What's good? What's good, y'all? Before the billions. What's going on? Professor Black Ops. You know what it is, man. Shout out. All right. So we're gonna get into this next one. Let me pull it up. Now, this is another concept to look at, right? Very interesting one. All right. This one's from Green Biz. Virtual energy storage using buildings as batteries.
Hmm.
Now, that's an interesting business proposition, right?
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, let's get into it. Thomas Edison once remarked, when we learn how to store electricity, we will cease being apes ourselves. Until then, we are tailless orangutans. True to Edison's insights, recent investment in battery banks, compressed air systems, and ultra capacitors show interest in solutions that improve energy storage technologies. And I'm gonna follow up this with or we'll get into that. The utilities and venture capital community are spending vast sums in search of solutions to curb peak power loads and to address the intermittency of renewable power sources. Edison would likely view these expensive investments as hard storage technologies, as noble but misguided efforts to transcend our collective simian roots. The rush to invest in new capital intensive storage technologies overlooks a larger, lower cost, lower risk opportunity, what we call virtual storage. Unlike hard storage technologies, virtual storage does not require large capital costs. Instead, virtual storage proposes creating intelligent, distributed, energy efficient, as well as harnessing the latent potential in building structures and systems to dynamically modify building energy usage. So this is basically re-engineering the purpose of the building itself while it's still standing.
Mm-hmm.
Virtual storage promises to reshape energy demand to match a variable energy supply. So I'm going to skip down to right here. Buildings as batteries. Buildings represent close to 75% of electricity consumption. All right. So another angle to look at real estate. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm saying. That's what we're gonna let's flip the script on this and let's take a different look. Let me see if Mike pulled up yet. No, not yet. Okay. All right. Buildings represent close to 75% of electricity consumption. Building energy demand peaks during hot summer afternoons when the need for air conditioning is greatest. While buildings are the dominant source of unbalanced load demand, buildings through virtual storage also represent the largest opportunity to cost effectively reshape load, thereby saving tens of billions of dollars by avoiding costs relating to both inefficient generation and cost of transmission and distribution, T&D infrastructure. Some new technologies are designed to reduce peak power consumption. These will be part of building as battery designs meant to achieve zero net energy. The new technologies are varied, including hardware solutions, energy efficiency control devices, and smart grid solutions. Man, okay. So basically, we're talking like new age power utilities, right? That takes like a 10,000 foot view and says, "Hey, look at that building. That'd be a nice battery," right? And then you come in, and then from the inside out, you literally redesign the building with it still standing with new technologies, right? So now we're talking about a new sort of, how do we put this? It is real estate, but now we're also dipping into the energy and now we have like a convergence, real estate, energy, and tech, right? That's kind of like a new type of maybe real estate business concept, and this is what we want to explore,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like how do we look at the buildings? How do we look at shit around us and then flip that shit? You know what I'm saying? At
Exactly.
one, oh, go ahead, dude. You got to go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay. At one end of the sophistication scale is the application of cool paints, dude. So something as simple as paint. Application of cool paints, typically white, which reflect 80 or 90% of the solar radiation falling on a roof. This simple change, this simple change very cost effectively cuts solar heat gain and peak air conditioning load while reducing ambient local temperature. For example, in Washington, D.C., making roofs on city owned buildings cool would reduce ambient city temperature by zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.4 degrees. That's like half, that's damn near half a degree, like for the entire city, just by putting this paint on the roofs of buildings.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. One of the most effective of these hardware solutions is dynamic electrochromic glass, which allows building occupants to control the amount of light and heat allowed through the glazing. Yeah, it's like this. It's kind of like you seen those glasses that kind of when you go into the sun they darken with those eyeglasses, and
Mm-hmm.
then when you're yeah, and then it's the same type of thing. But what they could do is control it. A small electricity current passing through an electrochromic layer on glass causes the window to shift from clear to tinted and back. In the clear state, up to 63% of light passes through, ideal for an overcast winter day when the solar heat gain helps warm the building and natural light reduces need for artificial lighting. In the tinted state, as little as 2% of light and solar heat gain comes through the window glass, keeping out almost all unwanted heat in summer afternoons while providing sufficient light to keep internal lights off. Yo,
So has this concept? Are they using this concept anywhere or?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like so for example, like a lot of like new, like what they were just mentioning earlier in the article, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's kind of a long read, but I'll try to sift through some other tech here. But yeah,
Mhm.
in a lot of the newer buildings that they build,
Okay.
they use all this type of stuff. We're even going to get into window cleaning bots. I got all that shit, man, stacked up here.
Automation.
This- yeah. That's what I mean, man. We're gonna get into it all. Let's see here. And I'll touch on this one right here. One challenge for most building energy management systems, however, is that they cannot use the thermal mass of buildings to optimize energy use. Now, there is another concept where you actually can use the mass of the building. It's called basically a concrete battery, but that's some more. We're not going to get into that stuff. That's yeah. But basically, it follows the same engineering concepts of actually using a building as some sort of energy like capacitor or battery or something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Thermal mass refers to the large concrete, brick, or stone or other materials that make up the building structures. These structures absorb and emit significant amounts of heat. The best of new virtual storage building control systems such as Building IQ can use the thermal mass of buildings as an integral part of achieving occupant comfort at lowest energy costs. So this thing literally is sort of like it's literally like a brain, and it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of like it regulates the body of the building, the temperature, so to speak, right? So it can kind of extract energy out of the building and then dump it onto the grid because concrete does absorb, like these materials absorb heat, right? So energy is it's not in stasis, it's always in motion, right? So it either radiates out or it can be collected, harnessed. So they're using all these various systems, right? And these are like the things that you bring into a community or something, right? You don't have to build anything new.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? What's your take on taking this approach to revitalization, like literally like on some energy stuff?
I think it sounds great. My thing is, at the end of the day, the residents, the quote unquote community, are gonna have to be more active to even take a
Hey,
look
wait,
at
wait,
it.
hey, Ramil, your mic's boring just a little bit, bro.
Can you hear me? Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me?
There you
Testing.
go, there you go, there you go. Okay, go ahead, say that
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. It just seems like no. The ideas sound great. It's just you know, the challenge is not the technology. The challenge is going to be getting the people in the community to give a fuck. I'm just gonna be honest. I mean that's what it is because the reason why stuff happens, gentrification happens because the residents stop caring. So these type of new technologies, which is incredible,
Hmm.
you got to, like you said, the onus can't just be on the government. It has to be on the people in there to have an open mind and do that. Like you said, we
Well,
went to
no, I
tech
think
centers, right?
what oh, I think. Don't you think though? It starts with wait a minute. What the hell? Don't you? Oh shit! Hold on one second, dude. My bad. Don't you think that it would actually start with businesses? Because businesses are what actually implement these, right?
Well,
So
yeah, but
go ahead.
who owns the business? Who will run the businesses? Who owns the businesses? Would
We
it be the
do.
people in the community?
No, we do.
Exactly. So you gotta have, yeah. So you have to have local business minded people, right?
Hmm.
Local business who's going to have to, which is pretty much the community, right?
Hmm.
To give a fuck enough about their community to not let gentrification happen, to take on these other steps before gentrification starts to happen. And
Right. Right.
and even the business owners in the community usually, they they usually own businesses outside the community. You know what I mean? The business owners usually people who own businesses in the community are foreigners.
Yeah. Well,
So
they're
it's like,
not. What they're not. Uh. Well, okay. Your average person isn't a community shareholder, right? Typically,
yeah, exactly.
you're typically see. This is the thing, right? That's why we have to stop thinking. See, we have to put our businessman hats on, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at steering an engineering society, right? I'm not really concerned about the on the ground singular opinions, so to speak, right? Because I kind of fundamentally understand. We just covered it in the first article, right? How revitalization is the ticket, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see, so um, I'm not saying I'm gonna be like some megalomaniac in that sense, even though we have touched on that topic and why it's important that we do embrace that because in times like this, it takes people like us. to go and do this. I'm not expecting everybody to do this. Listen, dude, we
Well,
only
I mean,
got 30, we
well,
only have 30 people here, right? We only have 30 people. Dude, there's some effery streams going on right now, right? So see, I'm not of the mind that it's the people on the ground that are going to do it. I mean, there's only but so many people here, even in this space, that are talking about this type of information. So I don't have the expectation. Well, first of all, hey, yo, Mike,
Hey, what's going on, man?
what's going on, man? I wanted to welcome you on, bro. I didn't want to like have too much time pass, man. Not even shout you out. What's going on, G?
Not much. I'm just jumping into the conversation, but
Yeah, go ahead, man. You got it. Go ahead.
yeah. So to what Ramil is saying is that the gentrification part. You are gentrifying the neighborhood by even bringing this sort of technology and ideal to it. So the displacement is, I think, is what you're referring to, right? So displacement is done by gentrification, but there are policies and statutes that you can be influential on, which is what Complex is saying, that would actually allow for something like this to take place. So here locally, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but here locally, you can't build commercial residential areas without it being mixed use. So the ground floor has to be used for business purposes, and then all the other levels above it also have to be for living purposes. But you also have to allocate at least 30 to 35% of your tenant space to be for low income or for subsidized income. And so you have this sort of multi-purposing of the environment itself. And so that's what Complex is referring to, that whoever owns the infrastructure in the commercial real estate is going to benefit greatly from it, while at the same time everybody in the neighborhood benefits from the clean energy part of it, right? You have less pollution, and so that also is a cascading aspect of health, public health. So there's grant money out there. There's all sorts of loans and stuff like that that could be allocated. And you're talking about opportunity zones, like we discussed on your panel before, that could be leveraged for that very thing.
So let's kind of double up on that one, right? So we're gonna talk more in depth or a little bit more in detail, right? About looking at buildings as energy, as forms of batteries, basically. Okay. Um, what if we could turn our houses and buildings into batteries, right? We're gonna just touch on it real quick. This is just another follow up, right? Saw an interesting video on YouTube by Undecided with Matt Farrell about batteries made from concrete. The video asks, what if we could turn our homes and buildings themselves into batteries? Cement is highly pollutive and is a leading cause of greenhouse pollution. It may not be on the level of the transportation industry, but still very high. Concrete is the number one global polluter, if you guys didn't know that. Grid operators are investing billions of dollars into lithium ion batteries. Large scale energy storage systems are expected to increase 100 times by 2030, but lithium is 2,000 times less abundant than iron. And it's going up and up and up in value as we speak. This doesn't mean lithium's not abundant. It is, but it does mean iron is a huge potential resource for storage systems, and iron is super abundant. Matt noted that although lithium ion batteries have vastly decreased in cost over the past decade, some experts still think that there will be struggles to make the needed improvements in cost, energy density, and charging speed. And them shits is just real volatile. This is why he emphasized to keep looking for feasible alternatives. One such alternative that Matt based his video on was a prototype developed by Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden. The prototype they developed was of a rechargeable cement-based battery. The battery has an average energy density of 7 watt hours per square meter, or around 0.7 watt hours per square foot. Shit. Wow. It also holds 10 times more power than previously produced cement batteries. And this is one of the first rechargeable cement batteries in the world that has been proven at lab scale. Fucking A. Okay, so now you're talking about whole home builders who not only build homes, but like like the goddamn home is a battery.
Yeah. So now you're talking about the Teslification of infrastructure, right? And so I think to what Ramil may be asking is, what's in it for him, right?
Mhm.
So
Well, not necessarily. Well, no. Well, that's going to be automatic. But I think you kind of answered that already. You said I'm gonna benefit off the tenants, the 30%
Mhm.
tenant occupancy rate, and the thing like that. My thing is
Mhm.
the onus. Like I said, if it's on it's on the business person, getting the community to be. I'm confused on that. Like,
You
because I
don't
know
get
black
that's what I mean. You
community.
don't get the community. You don't
Okay, you
get the
just say
community
you say
no,
fuck
treatment.
them.
well,
Look,
Okay, okay.
Solar City.
legally, you have to have the community
Well,
involved in
you
it. They
yeah
have to
yeah.
have some kind of say, right? Because it has
Yeah,
to
so
be,
sometimes like, how
it
do
has
you
to go
get
through a
them?
referendum. It has to go through a referendum first. It has
Yeah,
to
so how,
have at least three minimum hearings before it could actually, you can actually propose and go forward, right? And it has to get community buy-in, because that's one of the things about ESG, right? Environmental, social, and governance aspect. And so there's actually a chart. Maybe Complex could bring it up at some point. But the
Okay.
ESG, the 17 sustainability development governance goals, it has to comply with that. At least up here, that's what it is. But I think most communities actually operate this way, and so it has to go before the community, and you have to have um, people who are going to represent the implementation of the statute and the policy itself. So the business is only one sector; they can only have one area of influence, and that's where lobbyists come in, right? And so
Yep.
there's different pieces of the table. It's not just the community, because you're going to have block captains, you're going to have neighborhood consortiums and stuff like that are actually going to be involved in that, HOAs, different entities that's going to be a part of that conversation. And so it's not just one particular demographic of people. It's going to be a lot of other people involved in it, because a lot of projects have been stalled because you didn't have a whole lot of buy-in, not because people weren't showing up, but because people didn't agree with it.
Yep. Yep. But see, and now when we're looking at an increase um, in energy costs, right? This is what we're looking at right now.
Mhm.
We're looking at an increase, rise in fuel costs, which then crescendos into everything else increasing in price.
Mhm.
So if energy costs is the precipitator of everything else, right? If the cost of energy literally affects how much milk is in the store, maybe what we need to do is address energy.
Well, that energy gets sold back to the grid complex. It
Oh
doesn't,
yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
So the
Yep.
grid. So whoever your provider, whoever it's Con Ed, whoever it is,
Hmm.
your service provider, that energy gets sold back to the grid, and then then they cut a check.
Yep.
But that goes back to whoever the landlord is, right? So then they get to write it off on their taxes, right? Because
Boom.
it shows up as a
Yep.
renewable energy credits. And so
Yep.
and you have to accumulate so many credits before you can actually turn a profit um, at some point, and that usually takes probably a couple of years to do so, depending on what the environment is.
Well, it follows like the whatchamacallit, the Solar City model,
Yeah.
where we're basically you subsidize the cost of the panels for maybe what it's like 4 years, right? And then after that 4 years, the system's paid off, you own it, and then basically from that point forward, whatever it generates, that's yours.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be stored somewhere, though, right? It has to be stored somewhere,
Hmm.
and maybe a cement battery now is not the most.
No, no, no. Cement batteries are we're
Yeah,
talking about like new building tech, right? I think
yeah.
the previous article was
Mhm.
to address like the revitalization of pre-existing buildings, right?
Mhm.
Like like we're saying cool paints and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right? What are,
so your supply chain starts to benefit, right? Your Home
yep,
Depots, whoever is involved in that,
right,
moving of that good itself.
right. Let me see here. Let's look in the chat here before I go to the next article here. Let's see here. We got engineering cannabis. Sir Anthony, what's going on, you guys? Rael, salute. Jay Gammon, what's going on? E Capone, BK from the Rockies. Okay, what's going on, y'all? Welcome, man. Happy Saturday morning. I'm glad you guys could join us for this chop up. Let's see. AM1.
AM1 has
I
a
was gonna say
question
you
now.
want to. Yeah, I was gonna.
He
Let's see what.
said, would there be potentially detrimental health effects from people occupying a battery building? No,
No.
because the material, the cement itself, um, doesn't pose any health issues, right, or any impact on human health, because it's just storing energy. No different than like a lightning rod or anything else that stores energy. Because if that was the case, you wouldn't have like lithium ion or lithium polymer batteries in your ear for earbuds and ear and headsets, wireless headsets and stuff like that.
Right.
Those that would probably pose more of a threat to you than anything else, or even
Yeah.
a smartphone blowing up in your pocket. We've seen that many times.
Like I said, these are smaller devices that have more volatile battery chemistries than something like cement and iron.
Yeah, you got a better chance at probably an electric vehicle catching on fire than the
Then
health effects
health
impacting you
effects.
from a concrete battery on the side of a building. But yeah, to that point, I think that's a legitimate concern. But I also think that a lot of that stuff has been tested already. So, but go ahead, Complex, please.
Okay. Hey, Mike, this is the one you sent to me. I wanted to cover this because now we're looking at dual purposing EV charging infrastructure, right? Now we're starting to expand out what this can serve and be and do. So if you aren't following the electric cargo bike adventures of Tigard resident and ubiquitous Portland rider Sean Martinez yet, you're missing out. Sean logs serious miles and is always pushing the boundaries of what's possible with an e-bike as he regularly pedals from his home on the Portland Tigard border to destinations citywide. So this dude gets his hustle on a cargo bike. On Tuesday, he shared a short video on Twitter that showed he hooked his bike up to a Volta charging station at Bridgeport Village Shopping Center in Tigard. This is notable because this charging station, like many of the other snazzy ones being installed throughout the state, was only meant to charge cars. So now we're talking about what something was initially purposed for, now being multi-purposed or multimodal. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what is starting to literally just pop up all over the place, charging stations. And we're thinking, oh, okay, well, I guess that's only for an electric car. Not anymore, right? It's probably going to start to be for a whole bunch of different things. Sean reached out to us to share how he did it. It's been 2 years and 10,000 miles since we purchased our e-bike. I've had some level of range anxiety the whole time. Range anxiety is very real, man. I'll be on my scooters, I'll be dipping around, and then I look at the battery level, I'm like, shit. Although it's been much less since investing in a second battery. Even during the cold winter months, we can enjoy a 35-mile day that includes 2,200 foot of elevation gain traveling through the southwest Portland hills. Ooh, that's a lot of battery load. This includes hauling a 6-year-old, their bike, and all their stuff on our electric bucket bike. On these longer trips, I can still carry my charger and stop at a few spots that have reliable public power outlets to get a few extra rounds of free power. Okay, so he built. Let's see. So one of our usual stops is the solar charging station in the Oregon Museum of Science of Industry. The solar array provides 4 bike racks and have a built-in 110 volt AC outlets as well as 2 EV chargers. Okay. A few weeks ago, we stopped at the OMSI to grab lunch at their daily snack bar. We took our sandwiches outside to the solar charger and plugged it in. To my surprise, the outlets were dead. A couple of people were standing nearby and explained the outlets weren't working, possibly due to a cloudy day. Let's see. So he's basically, let's see. I wanted to find where he came up with how he did it. This is where we learned about this. So there's a shop right here. Okay. I noticed they both had electric bikes. So it said, "Can I look at your charger?" They flipped it over and read the label. That will work. You want to plug it in. I looked down and traced the wires coming from the EUCs. They were plugged into the electric car charger. They had a special adapter. They use a J1722. Oh, let me write that down.
So without going too far into
Yeah. Go ahead.
it's
That's some info I need right there. Shit.
really what they're talking about is an inverter. They took high power and brought it to low power.
Yeah, but they
And
showing which adapter they're using.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking 220 volts or 220 volts and bringing
And
it
then
down to
taking it down to
115.
110. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so 110 over 15 amps is going to give you 1200 to 1500 watts, and so that's enough for a bike to
That's
charge,
for a
but not
bike and a
for
scooter.
yeah, that's not enough. That would be considered a level 1 for a Tesla or electric vehicle, but for a bike, that's more than adequate
Mm-hmm.
for charging, right? Because the battery is small and the demand is less.
So now that we know that you could just use this adapter and go to 110, do you know how many different things you can use this for? That's what I'm saying. Now it becomes multimodal,
Yeah,
right? It totally becomes multimodal, right? You
yeah,
can have like a powered kiosk right next to that. So if somebody's over at charging their car or something like that, they can just go right over there to a little kiosk, grab them a snack or something like that while their car is charging. And
yeah,
like that charging station powers the kiosk, right? There's like so many different things you can now do with EV charging station where it's not just for an electric car. It can now be for a bunch of different things because now you could pare the power down to a 110 volt application, which is what most electronics run off of.
yeah. And maybe to bring Ramil into this because of the last article. You're talking about REITs, Ramil. So you're talking about real estate investment trusts, and so there's a lot of passive income in that. A lot of people make a lot of passive income off of real estate investment trusts, especially with the new hoteling of the community now too, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Black communities don't have hotels. They have these sort of very low base motel, 2-star, 1-star sort of places of stay, but nothing substantial. And so now you're talking about moving the needle a little bit further to the right in terms of the star rating, in terms of like 3, 4, 5 stars,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to occupancy. And so there's ways of getting involved into this from a real estate investment trust perspective. And so
Well, I mean, real estate part of that I mean, you have to acquire real estate to put the charging hubs in place, right? Like
yeah, but
this
he
come
can buy stake. What I'm
Yeah.
saying, if he can buy stake in this, right? So he's talking. Let's say at 3.5% of $1 million property, he's talking at least 35, 40 grand in
Yep. Yep.
as passive income for him,
It's passive.
and he doesn't
Right.
have to do any labor. And so Ramil, I hope that answers kind of where maybe you
Yeah,
had that
I
question.
think he put in the back chat, he stepped away. He said he'll be right
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
But yeah, that's where we wanted to. That's why I wanted to approach this from the 4IR commercial real estate, right?
yeah,
Because where you're actually putting the hubs is also a piece of real estate,
mhm,
right? That requires a real estate transaction too, right? So wait, now we do have another question here in the chat. Let's see here. Suo 1987 says, "Is it worth buying real estate in the U.S. with housing prices rising when America is on the decline?" Well, um, we're not certified real estate investors or anything like that. Um, However, what we're kind of covering is not. We're looking at a different way of a different way of looking at and approaching real estate, right? From a fourth industrial perspective. So we're proposing and we're modeling maybe new ways to look at doing real estate, especially from a fourth industrial based position. Maybe not in the most doing real estate in the most traditional sense, but through building revitalization, right? Urban revitalization, which we covered in the first article, where we looked at all these various ways of doing this. So that's kind of I mean I don't know. I guess if you find a piece of real estate for a good price, sure. I guess I don't know.
Well, that's the whole purpose of having these sort of opportunity zones, these sort of different areas of opportunity that comes out of these tax leanings,
Yeah.
right? And so if you have a distressed area that has um, a rate of poverty above 20 to 21%, which is most Black and brown communities, there's a lot of opportunity that can come in from just the investment aspect. But I think it requires a lot of capital up front.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Millen W. He says, "Are there any literature or books to learn more about the tech and current real estate?" What I would do is in the description of this video, I put the links to all the articles we're covering, and in those articles, there's like other links that goes more in depth. And I would say start with those articles because they literally are touching. Well, the nature of what we're talking about here comes from those articles, and it really has a lot to do with approaching real estate from a fourth industrial perspective. All right, I'm gonna pull up the last article here. All right, now let's talk about food. Solving food insecurity through urban microfarms. Mike, you know a lot about this, dude.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna just read, and then I'll let you chime in on a lot of this because your activities on the ground directly reflect what we're about to cover. Virginia State University is a leader in urban agriculture in Virginia and will help the nation in addressing food insecurity with a $600,000 grant to explore microfarms as potential solution to food deserts in urban neighborhoods. The USDA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, recently awarded the grant to Leonard. I'm not even gonna hack his last name. Get, oh God, Gitenji, Gitenji, project director and sustainable and urban agriculture cooperative extension specialist. God damn, that's a long ass name. At VSU, microfarms are small scale farms suitable for urban areas where agriculture land is scarce, i.e., black neighborhoods. These farms maximize the use of space and produce higher crop yields per unit area. Hmm. It's estimated that 80% of the United States population lives in urban areas where space for farming is limited. The funding will help build Virginia State University's capacity to provide comprehensive education on microfarming. So basically, Mike, and help me if I'm getting this wrong, but what they're doing is that it's like sort of like a new agriculture department, right? Or it kind of like when you would go to a university. I'm trying to think of universities that are kind of focused on farming.
You're talking about A&Ms and A&T.
Yeah, the A&Ms, right? Yeah, the
Agricultural,
A&Ms, right?
agricultural mechanical.
Mechanical, right? So this is sort of like a new take on this, right? On the A&M, no, or yeah.
No, you're in the right ballpark, and I would
Okay.
say that you're more right than you're wrong. But I think the kind of the gist behind something like this is to it's a part of, like I mentioned earlier, ESG, the environmental, sustainable, and governance aspect of moving in that direction of social justice and things of that nature. Of how do you make things more inclusive? Most people in the city have never worked on a farm because they don't have to, right? So
Right.
because you have stores and stuff like that, but in the event that you have deserts, food deserts, we saw during the pandemic, technology deserts, all of these things kind of coalesce with each other and
Mhm.
make a lot of sense.
Mike, can I ask you a question, Mike?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is this still in 2022? Do we have food deserts now that even though we have like ways where people can get fresh produce to the doorstep?
Well, that would be the definition of a food desert, right? The fact that you have to have a service deliver it to you means that it wasn't available to you to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. But does it still count as a food desert now that we are more connected, we can get that?
So a food desert is defined specifically by, and I'm kind of paraphrasing the definition, but it basically defines an environment that doesn't have fresh goods available to it to the community within 5 to 10 minutes. So you're in walking distance. So it's not, if you walk out of your house, where can you go to get that in mass scale?
Within 10 minutes.
Well, okay, so yeah, I understand that. But
Mhm.
what I'm saying is that, but now in 2022, since we can order it and it can be brought within to your doorstep, because that's gets a lot of houses, even in nice areas where you walk 10 minutes, you still not going to be at a grocery store. So what I'm saying, if you got Instacart and you can order place and the delivery fee is like $10, right? If you can order that and have it within your house within an hour, you know, fresh produce, lettuce, tomatoes, if food that is still a thing in present society, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Well,
by definition, it would be, right? If you lived in the desert, just because someone can, you know, drive in the truck and bring you some water, you still live in the desert.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what we're looking at here is micro farming, right? Being done in food deserts to, let's say, re-terraform these deserts, right, into lush gardens, so to speak. So, with urban micro farming, what we've done is we've basically reduced the footprint, and we've maximized space by leveraging verticality in terms of growing, right? And this can be done inside buildings,
Outside too,
right?
so you could
Mike's
take.
got something cracking on the outside.
Yeah, I sent you a picture yesterday
I
about
saw
that.
it. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
So to this point, they're taking over street corners that are, you know, vacant parcels and things like that, and they're growing upward. And so the ability to, like you just saw in that article, $600,000 grant, that money's out there. And so you have this sort of farming co-ops is what Complex is referring to. These co-ops where you have everybody has a stake inside this sort of this new micro farming, micro agriculture, agritech sort of thing. So you're not leaving that vacant parcel there to collect trash. You're actually repurposing it to grow food, which is actually good for the environment and good for the people who want to purchase it, because your SNAP card can actually be used to purchase those goods.
So what is stopping? Why? I mean, I've seen some of these a lot of urban communities actually have the gardens, you know, but there's such small numbers. What's stopping this from being more utilized within these urban communities? Because it seems like, especially in the South, why isn't there more of these? Like, you would think that, you know, okay, we're in a food desert, the demand should be high, so why isn't the supply high?
Well, they look most businesses look at the income per capita. Like Whole Foods would never open up in a predominantly black area because it looks at the income per capita. Same thing with Apple stores, right? You don't see an Apple store inside of a black community because they look at the income per capita to justify, retrofitting business in that area. And so, to answer your question, I think it has a lot to do with who wants to, invest into it. But to that article's point, there's money available to create co-ops like this. And so, how do you lobby for something like this? You got to have people organized on the ground to do that.
What's going on, Triz? You late?
What's going on? Oh, you said 8 o'clock though. You told me 8 o'clock. Remember?
I know I did, man. My bad. I did. But you know what? I fucked up, man. My bad.
What up, Triz?
Mike V, what's going on?
It's been a while, brother. It's been a while.
All right. So, damn. I was gonna say, Triz, did you catch? I told you 8 o'clock, man. Fuck, my bad, dude. It was gonna be 8 o'clock originally, and then Ramil and I agreed to do because it kind of worked for him, right? Coming in.
Well, before you jump to that, there's a piece right here in the article that
I was gonna get to the article.
Yeah. Because to Ramil's question, it says right here in the article, the project addresses 4 key NEFA priority areas identified in the 2018 Farm Bill: food security, sustainable agriculture, youth development, and obesity. That's what I was referring to earlier, Ramil.
Okay.
Those are the things that they're trying to address, and so that's in the bill for what they define as a food desert and things like that.
Oh, okay. Oh, so this is my bad. I was on the call. I just got back. They're talking about a bill passing.
This is the 2018 Farm Bill. This was the same Farm Bill that legalized hemp.
Yep.
So has this bill already been passed then?
Yep.
2018.
Yep.
This is the same one that legalized hemp. Yeah.
So then that's what I'm at. So if they already passed the bill, then my question, like I said before, this should be all over. What's stopping the urban community from adopting this?
There's nothing stopping it, right? What it is that these are all new concepts, right? That's what I mean. Like we're kind of at the front of the opportunity curve, so to speak, right? We're in that. See, that's why I'm saying
Community farming is new. Is that they saying that's
no,
new?
urban farming, micro farming, like in this capacity. Because look. So when you talk about like, okay, going 5 or 10 minutes to go and get somewhere, okay, what if you like went outside your door and then around the corner you just use like like an NFC payment, like Apple Pay, Google Pay, or something like that. You being like this cold box, and you open it up, and then you get your box of microgreens out of there that was grown in a building around the corner or something like that.
Yeah,
This is this is how you solve the food desert issue, but that's an entrepreneurial pursuit.
exactly. And
Right.
I agree with this entrepreneur, but I'm kind of agreeing with Mike Rizzi in the chat, man. I'm been around urban people all my life. I mean, like I said, they passed the bills, it's all ready to go. He says urban people are too complacent, unorganized, unfamiliar with this culture to put in sustained work. I'm gonna have to, because if the bill has been passed,
Mhm.
everything's in place, and then we know there's food that is in this area. There's literally no reason why
Yeah.
Black people
Okay.
should not be taking on vacant lots or anything like that, and should be
Mhm.
doing that. That's how I'm at with, like, I call me a nihilist or pessimistic,
Yeah.
but
And call me
you
an
know,
opportunist.
well, I agree.
Right. You guys can play the nihilist or pessimist if you like.
So
I'm
how many
telling you right now,
opportunities?
because okay, so that means, so here's what this means. So that means that less participation on you from you guys, more for me, more
No,
bots
no, no.
get
I'm
rolled
willing.
out,
No,
right?
I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the urban people in
No, and I'm
general.
not, and I'm speaking, and this is what I'm speaking. I'm speaking outwardly. What do you think the mindset of all these other tech companies are? You think I'm the only one? That's why I was like,
No,
you
no.
can, you like
Yeah,
people can have,
but
and you got to understand something about this platform too. What this platform is about it's about pushing the needle, right? We're very well aware of the nihilism and the pessimism. You know how many years we've dealt with it in this space? Why do you think we are where we are? Why? Because we pushed a threat on this. So I'm saying that
no,
if there's going to
I
be a
agree with you.
nihilist position, then we're going to be the opportunists in that.
No, and I'm glad to see that. My thing is, how do we get more opportunities out there? Because once again, everything's put into place where the food desert
Yes.
problem can be solved. And with the tech companies, you can see the tech companies. Like, I can't see all the Mike V's out there because I can't see the urban. I live in an urban area now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the
And
way you do that, Ramil, is through education.
is that okay? There, yeah. So how we
Well,
get the education to those people? Because
tune into channels like this.
Well,
okay,
Check
not
the
so much
links
as
in the
not so
description.
much as tuning into the channels like this, because you're talking about people on the ground who don't even have access to high speed internet, right? And so now you're talking about going into the churches, Boys and
Well, on
Girls
the ground,
Clubs,
yeah.
these sort of institutions on the ground, and meeting people where they are. I
now
think
that
that,
makes sense. That
yeah,
makes
you got to go to where
flyers.
people are.
Well, I mean, these are going to be like,
Libraries.
yeah, and I'm not trying to downplay anything. I mean, these are going to be like the obvious things that we would do, right? Right. See, so bearing this in mind, right? Bearing all of that in mind, because it's not as if public outreach is like a new no, it's always been public outreach. Anytime somebody wants to do something new, what do they have? They have some sort of presser, and then some lady comes and says, here's my baby, kiss my baby for the camera, and then he does it, and then everybody says yay, and then they all vote for it, and then something new happens in the community. So we know how this goes. I'm saying the business opportunities in this, in terms of urban revitalization, literally is all in our laps. It's in our
I
laps.
think you're right about that because once again, this market is dry,
No, it's not dry. It's green. You
no, no,
gotta, like I said, we're ahead of the opportunity.
entrepreneur wise is dry as far like now that's wet for opportunity. I'm talking about as far as people getting into it. It's not a lot. That's my thing is why is there not more urban entrepreneurs who are
Oh,
familiar with what you call it agriculture and things like that
right, like
who
all
are
this
taking
stuff.
advantage of this in these, especially in the South. That's my thing. You go in the South to see all these hoods, all these vacant communities. They got the weather to do this and to fulfill the need. That's all I'm asking. Where is the Mike V's out there? It seems like it's a lot of opportunity, but we're not hopping on it for some reason. But we want to talk about food desert.
So there's something called racial capitalism, Ramil, and so they need. There are certain people who have been elected, and some of these people who are unelected that benefit from people being in that state of disenfranchisement, and so they don't want you doing anything. And so that's where the clash.
But they already passed the bill. So if they passed the bill, it's the people in the community. Is nothing stopping the people from starting these urban farms on these vacant lots now.
Yeah, but life priorities take place, right? And so, you know, if they have to work 12 hours or 16 hours a day working 2 jobs, I don't think that this information may be as pertinent to them as getting to their next day of you know, going through their daily journey. So I'm just saying, I think there's a clash between a brain trust like this, so to speak, and unelected and elected officials who benefit from keeping Black people disenfranchised. And so that's the sort of things that we run into. I run into that a lot.
Well, my thing is this, you can't. Well, the thing is that you're saying that people can't start it because of the elected officials, but then you're saying they have life choices.
No, we didn't say can't. We said there's the challenges.
Yeah, the challenge. Okay,
the challenges, and because the thing about it is, you got to understand, dude. Elected officials have intrinsic interests, right, tied into how things.
Okay, what's they got to do with people's life choices? Because you said people have life. That's 2 separate things. If people don't want to take the extra time to do it, that got nothing to do with who's in office.
We're talking about life priorities, right? The ability to be engaged into certain, you know, areas of discussion, right? And so this may not be as pertinent to them as it is to us, because we're the ones having the conversation. But to someone who's an essential worker, you know, Instacart, wherever they are, they're remotely disconnected from this. So that conversation is foreign to them. That conversation is foreign to them. So you have to be the one to actually engage them and say, hey, did you know this? And this is what we're doing. And so you only have 30 seconds on the elevator to pitch your idea to anybody.
Or you take the disruptor route, right? You take the disruptor route like we did when I was working for Bird, a startup, right? You know what Bird did? So they came into a city and they were like, hey, we're a scooter rental business. And they were like, can we set up shop? And they were like, oh yeah, sure. So what Bird did was they just, you know, did their little business application. And then one morning, people woke up and there were hundreds of scooters on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people loved it, right? People renting it, money. What city official doesn't like tax revenues? Right? So on the one hand, all this business activity just happened. It just woke up one morning, right? People zipping around doing all this stuff. But then on the other hand, they're like, well, wait a minute. You guys didn't tell us you were going to put 100 scooters out on the streets. And then Bird was like, well, we said we were going to rent scooters. And they were like, yeah, but you didn't tell us you were going to put hundreds on the streets. And then they were like, yeah, but we said we were going to rent scooters. So we're at an impasse, right? Now, what Bird says is, but don't you guys like the tax revenues?
Well,
what do you think the city ends up doing? They end up capitulating. They say, okay, well, look. Okay, look. You know, yes, it's good.
But that means like elected officials don't matter then. If you could just, I think y'all do this further.
No. What I'm trying to tell you is that there is interplay. There is no just like they're over there and we're over here. No, dude, there's interplay.
Well, to Complex's point, one of the examples that happened during the pandemic with microtransportation, especially these e-scooters, was that there were elected officials, conservative leaning, that basically enacted the American Disabilities Act of 1990 and 1991, that these scooters were occupying the sidewalks and that they were blocking the pathways of people who had disabilities with wheelchairs and stuff like that, in order to prevent, you know, the mass scaling of these sort of businesses, these microtransportation, urban, what do you call it? Basic what do you call it? Basic mobility. Basic mobility.
I mean, like I said, they're in every city. My thing is, I think this is good information. I just kind of think it's a disservice to say it's going to be, you know, hampered by elected officials where you can buy them off and pay them off. I just like this urban farming thing. Mm-hmm. I think that this is an incredible idea and people should be taken into consideration. I might do some look into it. But I just think that to say that elected officials is going to be the reason it stops when you could just buy them all, I just think you do yourself a disservice. I think it's more the line. People just have life priorities, like you said, and we got to figure out how to work this in, because this should be a life priority in your neighborhood.
Think about this, Ramil. You had 3 elected officials in the Senate. You had John Kennedy, you had Lindsey Graham, and you had Mitch McConnell strike down the Black Farmers Reparations Bill.
Yep.
This is recently. This is a $5 billion bill that would go to Black farmers, which are mostly Black men, 99% Black men.
So, okay, so didn't they just get a bill? Didn't they just get didn't the Black farmer just get paid off? Because they got real quiet.
No, they got nothing.
Mm-mm.
They got nothing. That was struck down. That was supposed to be a part of the COVID relief bill back in 2019, 2020.
2019.
Yeah, I'm talking about there was another one before that where they got I think Black farmers did get
no, they got
billions.
nothing. No, they got nothing, Ramil.
I don't know
white
about
farmers.
nothing.
The white farmers got they got their set aside.
They got subsidized,
But
man. You
Black
got to go
farmers
back.
did
You got to
not.
go back to. You got to go back.
I don't know about that one.
No. We covered Ramil. We covered this.
Let me clarify. You saying so they passed the bill for reparations for farmers, right?
No, they did not.
No,
they did not.
Okay.
So
they went through a list. They went through a list and said he's Black. We're not going to give it to him. He's white.
No. This bill has been on the table since probably the 90s.
That's what I mean.
And so what happened during the Trump administration, it got struck down by your conservative right people who did not think. Lindsey Graham came out and said that this would be a disservice to white men, even though the white men got
they got subsidies.
They got subsidies.
When the trade war
John
popped
Deere,
off, when the trade war popped off, and the Chinese hit, what was it, like Minnesota and all these key states who produce soybeans and all that shit. Okay, who bailed those farmers out?
Yeah.
Anyone?
The Trump administration bailed them out. So all your soybeans that went to China and to feed these pigs and these hogs and whatnot, those farmers got bought off when the trade war started.
When that shit started, and all those the soybean stocks piled up, right? Mm-hmm. And not only that, but what then happened after that, Mike? Didn't China take their soybean business to Brazil?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're looking at farmers that are sitting over here like, okay, well, I got some subsidies, but I don't have any future prospects for business. I saw clips where basically these farmers are sitting up here like, you know what, I'm just going to tell my kids to just not do farming and have them do something else. This is it for the family farm, that type shit. That was all 2019.
No, I understand, but we're talking about because I see that they're waiting on the COVID relief, but Black farmers have gotten payments not only from the USDA, you know what I'm saying, but from the government. They don't be saying nothing to you guys. They be getting that relief. Matter of fact, they got some payment a few years ago. They tried to call it reparations and shit, and it
was a reparations bill, and it should have been a reparations bill because they were the ones being stymied.
But wouldn't the reparation be for everybody? Because if it's just for the farmers, them farmers got real quiet once they got that money. And as they should. I got no problem. Black farmers.
Wait, repeat that.
Okay, so the USDA gave Black farmers, that's the government institution, right? $1 billion not too long ago. My thing is they're getting money from government to programs. They're just not saying nothing to us, the main people, about it. Black farmers I don't think they're doing that bad, in my opinion.
Really?
No, yeah. I think the conversation is kind of drifting away from what we originally were talking about with the micro farming agriculture.
Yeah, because we're talking about addressing it from a micro farming standpoint, which serves urban areas versus what happened, based on the farm bill. Like I said, we could go into we covered a lot of that stuff, but that's kind of separate from urban revitalization, right? Where we're talking about not necessarily having to access reparations to get your farming operation off the ground. And I think that's more of an important proposition at this point, right? The struggles of Black farmers, that is a thing. However, I think that we could potentially supplant a lot of the struggles and challenges that they have by overlaying an urban farming infrastructure, right?
And I agree.
Marry the two, right? See, so this is why I'm saying, at a certain point, Ramil, I'm a no nonsense type of guy. I'm straight to solutions, right? I don't like to get bogged down into that when I already know that we are ahead of the opportunity curve. See, so what
So
I
how much
look
to
at,
start up? What's the startup cost for an urban farm, a typical urban farm in an urban community? Do you got?
look, you can look up videos on YouTube. There's guys that make $9,000 a month farming microgreens out of their goddamn
No,
closets.
that's dope. That's dope. I'm trying to say, because I want to know what's the. Do you guys know the startup? Like how much? Like, because I got property, right?
For
I
a
mean,
And
farm?
I got a backyard too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's capable of growing. Matter of fact, the previous owner had a garden in my backyard, right?
Mhm.
So
I have one too. Yeah.
yeah, so somebody like me, I would ask if you got what is the startup cost you think would be to start an urban farm in one of these urban communities? Like, what's the? Do you guys know the entry?
From
Or
my experience, most of it is labor intensive and not capital intensive. And so you have to be able to
okay,
take over some of these vacant parcels. First and foremost, that's the first and foremost. So you may have to pay off back taxes on some of these vacant parcels, depending on how long it's been
okay.
sitting for, right? So most cities want that money up front, but they're willing to negotiate on certain aspects depending on the size of the parcel itself. So let's say a parcel has been sitting there since 2008 because the crash, right, the housing crash, and houses got demolished, but the parcel is still sitting there. So it's been sitting there for 10 or 15 years. You figure if they were paying $1,500 a year on in taxes, now you're talking about probably 20 grand behind.
You can negotiate that.
You can negotiate that. So to your question, how much does it cost? The cost is the parcel.
But that's the high end. I
That's,
know.
it's the high end, right? And now you have to get some labor that's going to actually, excavate that property, because you can't just take over the property and then start planting. That dirt has to be turned over 2 or 3 times before you can even get to it.
Yeah, you got to till it a few times.
Yeah. But somebody said in the chat, I want 20 grand. You can get like in Gary, and you can get a lot for $500, bro, at the tax sale. So I mean, 20 grand is a high. Any of these cities, they're you come with these cities with a couple $100. A lot of times, there's places sometimes they're selling for $1. Now they'd be a high ass transaction fee, but you know what I'm saying. So it's a lot of lots. I'm just making this so that people understand this shit ain't hard. There's no barriers or anything. I've seen urban farms. I just don't want it to make it seem like it's impossible to do, man. Because a lot of
not at all.
Right. And so to your point, the other added cost is the greenhouses. You got to
what if it's outdoor? What if it's outdoor? Can it be outdoor?
You can be outdoor, but you still have to be able to grow all year long.
That's why you want
even in Atlanta. Atlanta has a cold period too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they got it. So you can only grow, but okay. So the greenhouse would be for the weather.
Because greenhouses keep they keep like the plants warm. Like when it's cold outside, but the way a greenhouse works, right? It absorbs like radiant heat from the sun. Even if it's cold outside, it'll absorb it. And then what you do is when you have like things like compost mounds and stuff like that, there's whatchamacallits, microorganisms, right, in the compost, and they generate heat. Okay, so compost generates heat.
So stick your hand in it, it's pretty warm.
Yeah, when you go inside, it's gonna be warm in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the larger urban farms that we have is backyard farms, which is probably like the size of a football stadium. They have about 3 or 4 of them. That's designed with a greenhouse as a part of the infrastructure. So they grow in there, and they have these sort of what they call sky booms. Like I guess that's what you call it. One of the scissor base machines that go up and down for window washing and stuff like that. They use it for vertical, because it's vertical. It's not horizontal, it's vertical. So if it's like 5 or 6 stories tall, then what you're talking about doing is growing vertically for the farm itself. And they're able to grow tomatoes and stuff like that within a few days.
So man, I'm looking at this, man. Like this is actually like this could make this is a big opportunity, because if you think about all the hoods across America, like the lack they have for stuff like this, man, I just think
there's over 30,000 parcels in Black communities across the country.
That's it. I thought it'd be more. Shit.
It is more, but what I'm saying here is that are viable for farming.
Shit.
Think about if you're a homeowner and I'm a homeowner, I probably don't want urban farm next to my house because it may depreciate the value of my property. You got the NIMBYs, not in my backyard.
Not
okay,
in my
okay.
backyard.
Not in my backyard, right?
Okay.
So if you put it off to like maybe something close to a school, then that may make a lot of sense. And so this is where the cannabis aspect comes in, right? So the agricultural aspect of growing hemp and things like that. There's a lot of opportunity that comes from. We're in the infancy phase of it right now of urban farming, right? Where we are right now, where where YouTube was in 2006 or where Twitter was in 2009 and so on and so forth. It's the early infancy stages of it. And so we have to look at this as an ongoing thing. It's not just a one-stop deal.
Like I said, we're ahead of the opportunity curve right now. Like what we're talking about is this is not the norm, so to speak. It will become the norm, but just in the sector that I'm in, I already know what all these companies are trying to do. That's why I speak to it the way I speak to it. I'm like, look, black folks can be nihilistic. They can be this. They can be that. They can be whatever the hell they want. They will also be subjected to this stuff.
Yeah.
Mess around.
Well, I see it like this. Without opportunity, I think the wife, we better get it for the white folks, dude. Shit, I might have to read up on this some more when I get off because I see opportunity around here. I just don't understand why with this food thing, this hasn't been more urgent amongst black people. That's my.
There's no capital available, Ramil. A lot of
how
do you go about raising capital for something like this? So if the people that you're talking about don't have the capital up front, this is the same problem with the
black people got capital, bro. We gotta stop with the black people don't got money stuff, bro. Like we got money, we just spend it on stupid shit.
Well, think about the article that Complex was just reading. They had a $600,000 grant. That's how they were able to do it.
We can get the grants too, though.
We get the grants. I will say this, man. One thing we good for is starting some nonprofits and getting some damn grants.
Yeah, we can get the grants.
That's the point. That's the point that I'm making. That you're asking, it's capital intensive. So if you're talking about a $600,000 grant and you're talking about black people doing it, trying to outfit their way through it, that's unrealistic to go up against something like that.
That's
so
true.
It's possible.
If we tapping in to get grants for every damn thing else, Ramil, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. So we can get grants for this, and if have to come out of pocket. But I mean, like you said, Bo, why don't we use everything we have available? Because this opportunity. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, with this shit right here, if black people don't hop on this, there's gonna be white folks having urban gardens in the hood.
Dude, that's what's happening.
That's what's happening now.
Exactly. I already knew. I didn't even know. I just knew what was going to happen. So I'm saying, so the fact that we're not on this, to me, I don't. In my neighborhood, I would feel better if I'm buying produce from somebody look like me. But then I can't talk because all the other stores are open.
Well, the restaurants want the produce more than the supermarket.
Than the people.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
commercial restaurants. See, now,
because they can say, we buy from a black business
and local farm, buy from locally sourced,
and this feeds into the virtual kitchen business model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all tying in, man. Virtual restaurants, dark stores, and repurposing buildings for micro farming and
in Brooklyn, they have a rooftop farm. They have rooftop farms.
The whole farm. It's a whole farm on a rooftop.
Multiple buildings are used for rooftop gardening and farming, and so a lot of the local restaurants utilize, the produce from them. And so if you look at on Google, look at some of the images like Brooklyn rooftop farms, you'll see like there's greenhouses on top of the building rooftop itself, converted. And so they grow nonstop all year. But these are some of the innovations that happen on the ground that really doesn't get discussed. At least in sectors like this, doesn't really get discussed for good reason.
But it's happening though. I mean, it's
avatars are more important. So no, but somebody like, if this is piquing Ramil's interest, I was talking with somebody last night about this at the barbershop, and he immediately stopped getting his haircut and was like, I need to chop it up with you some more. I said, this is the type of stuff that we talk about all the time.
Wait, hey, no, check it out. Wes said just placing a farm doesn't increase demand. No. Not talking about increasing demand. What we're talking about is addressing supply. I'm sorry, we're talking about addressing demand, because there's not ample supply.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about increasing demand. We're talking about increasing supply to meet demand.
Well,
There's a desert.
I think one of the issues is that like the conversations, as Mike V is kind of insinuating, the conversations are not consistently being had. And then so if you talk about, you know, the supply and demand issue, prior to the advent of the iPhone, there was no demand for an iPhone. But when you create the actual product, people realize that it's there. Now there's demand. People are clamoring for iPhones. So I think with the actual urban farming thing, I think one of the issues is that, you know, we talk about capital. There's individuals within the Black community that have capital, and let's just talk about, let's say for instance, you have individuals who, you know, whatever they do, maybe they're rappers, they're entertainers of some sort, maybe even they're civilian, you know, entrepreneurs, civilian farmers, pharmaceutical personnel, if you catch my drift. So somebody who has access to capital, and oftentimes what they do is their attempts to give back to the community from an optic standpoint, you know, turkey drives and things like that. An alternative would be an urban farm. So instead of investing capital into something that's not really sustainable, because every year you have to go out and purchase turkeys, you have an urban farm that kind of renews itself. Now you invested the capital into something that's going to generate revenue, and so it sustains itself in perpetuity.
Okay. Somebody said in the chat, what says the demand for fresh food in urban areas is low? Would y'all agree with that?
Well, I think one of the hurdles to fresh food is cost. One of the hurdles to fresh food is cost, because you're talking about food that's not grown in a specific area that's then moved to this area where people are supposed to consume it. And so I think that's one of the hurdles, that if you have something that's grown locally, you kind of cut out the transportation cost. So now you can bring this product to market at a price that
Somebody's mic is going crazy.
Somebody's moving around, I think.
Somebody.
Hold on, it might be me. Hold on a second.
Yeah, that is gone now.
Okay, but let me ask you this: is it? I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I don't think the demand is low. I just think the opportunity is out there. A lot of people in these areas want to eat healthy. They would love to have opportunity. They just don't have a whole food. I'm gonna have to disagree with the demand being low.
Even anywhere, like, okay, so like if you talk about just a lot of it is culture specific. So when I was in say for instance when I was in Houston, right, there's some cultural differences in eating habits there. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's exclusive to a particular community, because the difference in cultural eating habits, I saw transcended race. There was blacks, whites, and others who didn't eat healthy in Houston. I come to Seattle. People are more inclined to eat healthy, and this includes blacks. It's just a cultural thing for a specific area.
Matter of fact, black people, even though black people have the highest increase in plant-based eating in the past few years, they're the most increased. Black people are looking for more healthy alternatives. There's a vegan restaurant. I'm not saying this is everybody being vegan. I'm just talking about for Whole Foods. There's a vegan restaurant that opened down the street, and I'm in the urban area. Booming. Business is booming. So I think black people, especially urban, they are looking for the demand for better food, especially with all the information getting out here about how to eat better. The thing is that there's not opportunities to do that. That's why I said white folks is going to be the ones doing this urban farming if black people don't get on it.
Capital up front, they have
well, okay. So let's talk about the capital. So
but black people don't have capital. I think
we don't have our capital is not as intense as theirs, right? You're talking about the average white household has an income per capita of something like 150 to 180 grand a year, compared to a black household of like 35 grand. That's
why I asked you. That's why I asked you how much it costs to start up, because I just don't think capital is black people. I don't think capital is black people's problem in America.
Well, it is a problem, Ramil, because think about it. First of all, it's region specific for cost. So if I were to start an urban farm in Gary, Indiana versus here in Seattle, there's a big difference in price, because the actual real estate itself is a lot.
It's two different economies, though. Like a black person in Seattle probably gonna have more money than a black person in Gary.
Not necessarily, because here's the thing, right? So when we talk about the actual capital cost, right? So if I'm relying on cash flow from my job, right, to actually provide the capital necessary to actually invest in urban farming versus if I already own assets, like a lot of my contemporaries, from other ethnic groups. If you own property, then you can get a second mortgage, home equity line of credit. You can refinance and cash out. There's ways you can access capital without actually utilizing the money that you generate on your job. So from that standpoint, you talk about the accessibility of capital. Yes, it's significantly higher in other groups because of the actual assets.
I know it's higher. I know other groups have more capital. I'm saying that how much capital to start an urban farm? Like, even if they have more capital, does that mean we can't use the capital we have on top of grants to start our own? Because to say lack of capital, we can make it. We got people who die. We got grandparents who die, leave us houses, all type of stuff. We just blow it. So
that's my point. So when we talk about the actual capital, the upfront capital investment, right? So we're talking about real estate. So you have to look at things from the standpoint, if I want to start an urban farm, do I want to actually buy the commercial building or do I want to lease the commercial building? Because if I buy the commercial building, that adds to my upfront capital.
You can get a parcel for $1,000, though. You get a lot at the tax.
You can't get a lot for $100,000 out here where I'm at.
Okay, so hold
complex, on. Where complex is at? Can you get a lot for $100,000? No. Mike can't get a lot for $100,000 in Boston.
It depends on what you negotiate. If you got a tax lien situation, right, and that lot been sitting there for years, the city will work with you.
That's true to a certain extent, Ramil, but under certain conditions. So even here, a parking spot costs $100,000.
Thank you.
Yeah,
a parking spot costs $100,000. But if you leverage a community trust, then you can work out that, but it doesn't belong to you; it belongs to the community.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. My thing is,
there you go.
My thing. I mean, when we say we have lack of access to capital, man, then I see that we have the spending power with the ninth richest group in the world. I see how we're consumers, how we spend frivolously on things. I mean, when we say lack of capital, and then you look at our lifestyle. Because black people gonna live a good lifestyle. I don't give a fuck how. So I just it doesn't match up to me. I mean, we got parents and stuff who pass away all the time. We get the belt, we get the house, we get the land, we either sell it.
There's a difference, Ramil, between having enough credit to get a Honda Accord or something like that than it is to actually, go out and acquire a large parcels and property and business. I mean, this is the biggest problem that black men are facing right now with this social equity program for cannabis, that they can't get in because they don't have the upfront capital, whereas the white people.
So we gotta hustle harder.
Well, you may have to organize and put all of your resources together. I mean, 10 black men with $10,000 is better than one black man trying to come up with $1 million.
Well, I mean, you even look at other groups when you talk about projects like okay, so I'm part of a real estate group here in Seattle, and there's a lot of investors out here. Even now, these are people. Some of these people got 200 units, right? And these are not businesses. These are like individuals who have 200 units by themselves, and a lot of them say it's cost prohibitive to start projects here in Seattle. So they have to look at areas outside of the city. And these are whites and Asians and Indians and people who have access to capital. So a big part of the discussions that they have is how to raise capital. And that in itself is a certain skill set. And we're talking about people like other groups, like
black people had a skill set. I think we do got a skill set to raise capital. I've raised capital amongst just this group alone in the quote unquote this black sector, whatever. So to say, I all these barriers, I just think that we can get access to capital. If you have something that is valuable and speaks money. Raising capital is not hard. People are always looking for places to put their money. They don't give a fuck what your race is.
You're always going to have your Jay Morrisons. You're always going to have those guys. But if you had to look at the manosphere and ask these guys, how do they go about raising capital? What kind of response are you going to get?
I wouldn't ask them. I'll just do it. I'm not asking these niggas shit.
No. I'm saying beyond you, right? Beyond the myopic aspect of it. You're saying black people. You're saying you. But I'm saying, if you had to have this conversation in the manosphere, how many dudes are going to jump on the panel and actually give you a 30-second elevator pitch on how to raise capital?
No.
Well, we did. We
Yeah,
kind of already did that. And that was kind of trash. I will say, even though I don't fuck with Kevin Samuels, that show we did when niggas would come up and pitch their show. I learned how ill prepared. But that's a personal problem though, right? The fact that we can't raising capital is a skill that could be learned, right? So
I mean, but you say that, Ramil, but go to the white manosphere and ask them, have a conversation about raising capital. You're probably going to hear a little bit of crickets over there too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because
it's not cut and dry. It's not something that's understood by people in general. It has nothing to do with just being black. Just generally speaking,
I agree.
Don't know how to raise capital.
So that skill set that some of us are going to have to benefit everybody else, right? I mean, black people can learn how to raise capital. That's what I'm saying. Like we can learn how to do. I've seen black people on Shark Tank get millions of dollars. I mean, I've seen even in my private life. It's if you have a business plan or something that is very promising. I don't care what race you are. People are going to try to throw money at you because everybody wants to make money. So, I mean, that skill set, you're right, it is a skill set, but I think we are capable of doing that. I think black men are capable of learning how to raise capital in this environment. I don't want to say we're not able to do that.
Well, one of the things that Mike V mentioned that when you're talking about urban farmers is not as capital intensive as it is labor intensive. So selling the labor aspect of it, that's going to be an issue all in itself. If you have somebody who already works a significant number of hours, then they have to go home and take care of, 3-4 kids. They're trying to get them to invest the actual labor capital as well. That's something that's going to have to be a hard sell.
Can we just hire them, the little hood teenagers around? Hire them little.
Well, that's the problem.
Yep.
Millennials and Zennials are less likely to get involved in this sort of labor, labor capital because they want the instant gratification. That's why the gig economy. That's why the gig economy is so popular with them than it is with boomers. Right? Boomers, they work, they get a pension, and they retire. That's how they do. The Zennials, they're like, I don't know.
I want my money now.
But some of them, I mean, that is true. But there is going to be some that's going to be interested in the ag. I mean, I can't write all of them. You're right. Most of us is not on that labor stuff. But I do think there is. I mean, you put out an application on Craigslist. Hey, I need somebody to work my urban farm right down the street from your house. You don't got to drive to the city to work. You don't got to put all the extra stuff right down the street. Walk to work. What's up? I do think there would be even if it's a high turnover rate.
Well, it has to be a part of a co-op, Ramil. You can't just like put something on Craigslist. Like people have to feel like they own it too. They have to feel like they're a part of
what?
it.
Why because they sure they have to work. They getting paid. Shit.
Well, who's paying them?
The profit. What? It's a business, right? So the profit,
but you have to actually sell the produce first before you can actually generate a profit.
Well, before, regardless, you have either cash reserves that you have to start it, and then until you turn a profit. If they're coming to work to get paid, why they got to feel like they own it?
Because that's a part of like a cooperative. That's most of these farms that you're looking at on the screen. Those are cooperatives. They're not a for-profit business. They're usually not.
Well, that changes the conversation, don't you think? If it's now we're talking about co-op versus business
or proprietary business. Well, yeah, because you're talking about how do you build generational wealth? Well, that's through land acquisition, and then the land acquisition is for the farming purpose. Then that's something that the community owns. I mean, but you may not be thinking in that capacity, but the people who are involved in that's how they're thinking of how do we take over more land, and this is how they do it.
So what is the better system for this? The entrepreneurial route or the co-op route for urban farmers?
It's a mix of both.
It's a mix of both. Supply chain.
But when you start a farm, it's going to be either one or the other. So
no, it's not. It's not an either or.
Well, a co-op can't be it's not necessarily for profit. I mean, like which one is
because you do profit sharing.
Okay,
that's the whole thing of a co-op.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's profit sharing.
But what's better? What's the better system? Because if they're not, you can't say it's a mix because they're two different.
No, no. You can no, dude. As companies, like we do this. We actually do this. As
corporations do it all the time.
They do it all the time.
They go out. They give out bonuses at the end of the year, or they.
But they're not co-op. They're not classified.
No,
but that's a part of.
It's an arrangement, right? Dude. It's
right?
an actual business arrangement. Yes, they are. I'm telling you, my company does it. I work with like about 3 or 4 other companies, and together, we all work together to make a singular product, right? But there's multiple components to it, and there's different. We all have our specializations. Okay, and there's a shared interest
Mm-hmm.
and a shared profit aspect to it. So no, that's how it works.
Yeah. When I used to work for PayPal, they gave out what was it, five shares of stock when you first sign on.
Yeah, but those, yeah, I understand, but those are not a cooperative is different than a business. Like cooperative is like
A cooperative is a business. It's a business model.
but,
But
yeah,
you're
business
looking at
model.
it.
but that's when like the people who work for it own it. Like they have the same say as somebody who will have a CEO, and you know what I'm saying. So when we say a co-op, the one person who has this amount of shares will have the same say as like a CEO for a corporation. Like
That's no, dude, it really
Division of power.
yeah. I was gonna say it's a division of power, man. That's the whole thing. I mean, um, you okay.
Yeah, let's move on to the next
Yeah.
article. I think this is a really good discussion because
Wait, which no, I that was all the articles I had.
Oh, did you go through the tech crunch
To
with the?
which one?
I think there's tech crunch.
Yeah, the TechCrunch one. Let me see. Let me see here. Because I'm gonna have to wrap up here in about 15, 20. I'm
Yeah, I think there's two articles. I think there's the tech crunch one with the robotic. And,
oh shit.
yeah.
Hold up.
nah, but this is actually, like I said, to me, I'm like, man, this is a crazy opportunity, man. I'm just saying, I can just see white people coming in and grabbing stuff if black people don't get a hold of it.
Well, you can also fight against that too, Ramil. That's kind of what we did here with the social equity programs to prevent white cannabis businesses open up in around black areas. They can't do that here.
Yeah, I think
All
engineering also brought a good point too. The reason why there's another opportunity because people tired of all the shit in their food. They don't know what's in their food, and then if you guy down the street's growing your food, he can at least tell you, hey, this is what I did. I mean, it's a lot of opportunities in this.
Yeah, look at the stocks for Impossible Burger.
Yeah. Oh God. Hey, wait, Mike. Let me pull that. Let me find it. Hold on. Let's see here. Search. Let's see. Let's see here.
So, Mike, as far as the while Complex is looking that up, as far as the actual leasing versus purchasing aspect of commercial real estate, have you guys weighed the pros and cons of that? Because let's say you lease a building, right? And, generally speaking, if you're talking about a commercial lease, those leases are generally longer term periods than say
5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And then there's different types of leases to where, as the leasee, you may pay, a higher portion of the actual cost. Maybe you only pay rent versus you can have a lease where you're paying the actual property taxes, and then they have some leases where, a percentage of your proceeds, is part of the lease agreement. So
are you referring to what exactly though?
Well, so basically, like what are the so because the upfront capital costs is part of the hurdles in addition to the labor costs, obviously. So if you can mitigate some of your upfront capital costs by say leasing as opposed to buying.
So let me give you an example. We had an abandoned factory that used to produce flour. It went out of business probably in the 80s, but it was sitting there for like the last 20 years. The city claimed it as blighted, and what ended up happening was it got transferred into a community trust. And so now the community of black people own it. And so what they did is they rehabbed it. They got grant money to rehab it and turn it into like what Complex is saying as a virtual kitchen. And so for the food trucks use that area area for that purpose to cook all of their food before they leave out for the day, and then they go do their business and they come back at 4:00. And so the capital intensity that we're referring to, whether it's leased or owned, it doesn't matter once it's in the community trust. Is that making sense?
Okay, so well, let's say that you're in an area where so that would require the building to actually be blighted, and a building that actually sits sits on the market for extenuating a long period of time where it's not being managed and maintained and things like that. So outside of that, just leasing the building as opposed to just purchasing the building up front, because you're
lease, so you can if you were a co-op or a nonprofit, there are leasing options that may be subsidized by the city or the state. So I know some co-ops that don't pay any rent at all. It gets subsidized by the state itself.
So that would be a capital, upfront capital cost savings.
Yeah.
Then
you have to be organized to do something like that, though, Tris. You understand what I'm saying? You have to be organized to get something like that done. You need enough people. You can't just show up as one person. If you show up with 100 people, then your conversation changes. The energy of the conversation changes, and things get done.
Yeah.
So, real quick, this is the drop that Mike was referring to here. Skyline scores $6.5 million to wash windows with robot arms.
Yeah.
There you go, folks.
This is the future, right? It's happening right now. A lot of black men who would probably work, or I shouldn't say black men, but in this conversation, it would be about black men.
Black men ain't working them jobs. I'll tell you that right now.
I know quite a few who do.
Yes, they are.
I know quite a few who do.
I mean, it's a small no. Niggas ain't not finna stand on the windows and fucking 3,000 feet in the air. Come on, man. Like, maybe some black people in there, but I'm gonna tell you right now, dog. Majority of them niggas is not black. I don't need the stats for that, but I see what you're saying.
No, it's a lucrative gig because you make about $65,000 a year. Off of
sometimes more.
Yeah.
Sometimes significantly more.
Look up cliffhangers. Cliffhangers.
Nah, they get paid a lot. I'm just saying. I just know niggas. How many black people work?
Well, we're talking about the labor. We're talking about the labor aspect where black men thought that they were pliable before the pandemic.
I'm just talking shit. I know.
Lotus Scalper says those are immigrant jobs right there. No, those are robotic jobs now.
Yeah. So a lot of guys who thought that they were going to be moving boxes for FedEx and UPS, those jobs are starting to be automated now. I think MOT did a stream about this maybe last week that he went to one of these warehouses and how automated the place was.
Oh yeah, full
Genesis. I think it was something about Genesis systems or something like that. Yeah.
There's a whole automated warehouse system where they literally just put a whole entire mesh of QR codes down on the ground, right? And then these bots have scanners that scan the QRs, and that the QRs give them the direction and which way to go and the sequence to go.
Well, you ever worked in a warehouse before, Complex?
Huh?
You ever worked in a warehouse before?
Yeah.
So I worked in a Home Depot warehouse before, and so they had the same concept where you had the QR codes and you had the handheld scanners, and we would go around with the scanners and scan certain things, and then so we'll know what to load on a pallet and stuff like that, And so, anyways, this was something that was that's historically been done by humans, and so now you look at it from a technological standpoint that you can actually implement robots and have some degree of automation doing those tasks, because those tasks have been labor intensive, and a lot of those jobs were occupied by people getting out of prison. Because when I worked there, I was like one of the few people there that didn't have a criminal record. A lot of those jobs are people who couldn't get a job anywhere else, so they come to the warehouse because the warehouse will hire convicted felons depending on what your offense was. And so now if you have these jobs being automated, where then does that demographic go once they exit the penal system?
That's the big question, right? I mean, look at in California recently with those box cars for Amazon fulfillment, right? Being trashed all over the world. I mean, look at in California. Say that again.
No, go ahead, dude.
No, what I was saying was those box cars being trashed out there in California recently. Those Amazon fulfillment shipments, right?
LA, dude.
A lot of the labor that Trish is referring to is people who just got out of jail, and so the labor, for Aramark and some of these laundry places that work for the hospitals, the Ghanis and stuff like that they have to clean these things and with blood and soil and things like that on it. A lot of that stuff is being done, by black men, so to speak, in some of these areas, and so a lot of that labor is being exploited. But to Complex's point about automation, this stuff is starting to, become more of a robotic thing now than anything else. And so where do you go as a black man if you don't have any skills?
Well, also, Mike, a lot of this stuff is being accelerated by the unwillingness of people to return to work immediately after the pandemic. The money that was issued to kind of offset the lack of ability to go to work. People didn't want to go back to work because they had been so accustomed to just collecting a check at home. So we've had severe shortages. At my hospital, there's always been shortages with medical staff, but there's a lot of ancillary staff that behind the scenes are integral to making a hospital work. So one of the big issues is we have a supply service. We call it MSC, and that's basically people who basically the logistic aspect of supplying the hospital. With a lot of disposable goods, it's simple stuff like alcohol swabs and needles and stuff like that we go through, quite a few every day. And so you have the aspect of somebody has to go around and look at, how much is being utilized so we know how much to order. And then somebody has to go and stock, things like that. So there's moving parts involved with that. So any breakdown in any one of those areas, you have a kind of a traffic jam of stuff. So we've had issues with getting those staff maintained. And so when I look back at the VA hospital, they had an automated kind of supply service. So they had like these little robot things that there was some type of whatever strip that was in the ground. And so these little
transponders in the ground.
Yeah, these robotic boxes would go around delivering supplies. That was at the VA hospital. It was like kind of like a pilot program years ago. And so now the hospital that I'm working at, this is what they're talking about now. Because they can't get people to work, a lot of people don't even know these jobs exist. People think about a hospital, they think about, doctors, nurses, physical therapists. That's what they think about at a hospital. They don't think about there's people that are non-licensed that work in the hospital that make the hospital work. And so you don't know these jobs exist. And so you don't have people to fill these voids. And so now they say, well, you know what? We're just going to give machines to do it. So I think another issue is that even like skyscraper cleaners, people don't really think about skyscraper cleaning. Nobody thinks about that job.
That has to be done 2 or 3 times in a month, depending on where you are. All the salt on buildings and stuff like that, soot,
Even things like, elevator. There's a severe
elevator
shortage of elevator technicians. Do you know how crazy short that industry is?
Yeah, it's elevator and escalator engineers. They make $90 an hour.
Now, for elevators, it's dangerous. I know a guy that does elevator work, and he told me he knows a couple people that's died doing it. It's dangerous work. It's not like it's something like you're gonna get your money's worth, and it's kind of labor intensive, but it's so lucrative, and there's such a demand for it. But people don't know these jobs exist, or maybe they know, but they don't really think about it.
They're also union based, and so getting into the union is the first aspect, and that's the sort of things that we need to be advocating for, at these community colleges for vocational training and getting into these sort of linear job spaces. That these are long-term jobs. These jobs aren't going anywhere. These jobs are going to be around for a long time. And so, because you can't automate, the maintenance of an elevator or escalator. And so I know guys who do it. Very few black men who do it, but they've been in the business probably because their grandfather was in the business too. And so they make, when I was talking to them, they was making up to $85, $90 an hour. And that was back in 2013.
Another job that I didn't even think about existing. Mm-hmm. I was at work. And so you have what's called a Pyxis, which basically is like a gigantic like vault for medications. Right. And, it's computerized, there's a computer screen to it. Then there's mechanical components to it as well that actually, control lock mechanisms. So and it integrates with the computerized healthcare records and stuff like that. So it's a pretty complex kind of machine, complex by design. But
hey, I see what you did there.
So the machine broke down, whatever, right? And there was an actual mechanical issue with it, not just a computerized issue with it. So they had to call this guy in, and this guy was like, man, he's the only guy that does it for like this whole area. So he has to go to all the hospitals. This one guy And he's like, yeah, I got to get back up at 4:00. Now, mind you, it was already like 11 o'clock at night, and he started working on this machine. It took him like 2 hours, and he had to get back up at 4:00 to do another to actually start his day. And so thinking about that, that's another job, and that's not like you don't go to school for that. You don't go to like a 4-year college for that. That's vocational training. So there's like a lot of jobs, and you can't automate the repair of that. At least not now. Like that technology to actually automate that particular portion of that's going to be like, probably 100 years from now. So I think that just the conversations about the actual job opportunities that are there. And so when you talk about the capital issue, that allows you to access capital. If you're making $90 an hour, capital is no longer an issue for you.
Yeah, depending on whatever your union maintenance fees or dues or whatever it is, but it is a lucrative blue collar opportunity. But I just wanted to say, thanks for having me on, and shout out to.
I do got to ask a question before you. I know you got to wrap it up.
Yes, sir.
I do got now. Objectively, what do y'all think about the Biden presidency so far?
I think if you're asking me personally, I'm probably the only one that's going to probably answer it. I think he had the right intentions going into this, but he has to placate to a certain base that looks just like him.
Can you just say he's trash? I mean, I don't want to say inflation,
no. Well, he doesn't have any control over inflation. Inflation is built into capitalism and everything.
No, the presidents, just like Donald Trump, has something to do with the economy. He got to get this work too. You can't say Trump's economy. What about Biden's economy? All presidents got something to do with the economy.
Well, to your point, Trump trashed the economy with a trade war. There's a difference. Biden isn't starting a trade war.
How did he trash the economy when more people were employed than ever, especially black people?
The trade war forced higher tariffs on import goods from China and some of these other places.
Which means American companies were able to take over that market.
No, they did not. And so what happened was it inflated the cost of the product. So now instead of $500 for an iPhone, you're paying $1,000 for an iPhone. That's why the iPhones are so expensive. It's because the tariff costs went up. And so what I'm saying here is Trump tried to start a trade war that inflated the cost of everything, and those costs are not going to come down. It's not like, Apple's going to take off $500 now because Biden is in office. No, they're going to keep that cost up because they're going to benefit from it. 90% of their revenue comes from the iPhone. And so what I'm saying here is the differences in leadership is that I think Biden had the right intentions, but I also think that he failed in many areas that could consequently kill him in 2024. Am I a fan of him? No. Did I vote for him? No. Am I a registered member of that party? No. And so to answer your question, I don't think he's I think it's a little bit too early to say how bad he is because it hasn't been 4 years yet. But with Trump, we saw what he did in 4 years.
Trump ain't get 4 years. Niggas was saying he was bad from the first day though. I mean,
because he's not a politician. He's not a politician. That's what they were saying.
I think that's a good thing.
Well, they said the same thing about Obama, right? I would dare say that that's pretty much always the first thing that happens when a new president takes over an administration, right? It's literally just heaps and heaps and heaps of criticisms, right? This is honestly like you got to go back to.
Let me.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Let me answer this question in chat. He says, from West, he says, right intentions, Biden since when? Well, you talk about wiping out student loans. That's what brought a lot of people to the party because a lot of people have student loan issues. And so that's what I'm saying. He had the right intentions. He just didn't follow up on it. We'll see what happens.
That's called lying. That's called lying.
Well, it's an economic issue that affects just about all the people.
It's called lying, man. Come on, why I can keep you? He lied.
No, I'm not saying he told the truth or he lied. What I'm saying is when you put something out there like that and say
that's what's going to draw the people in.
That's what's going to.
That's a lie. That's called lying.
He's a politician.
Yeah,
he's a politician.
They all lie.
Yeah, they all lie. But what I'm saying here is to answer your question: was he trash? I think it's a little bit too early to say he's trash, but I also think that he had the right intentions on the campaign trail to draw that demographic into the party. And that's what brought him over the hump. I think it's still a little bit too early to determine whether or not he's trash, but I also don't think he's the right guy for the job. I don't think he is.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm good.
I don't think he's the right guy.
I'm
I don't think he's the right
solely,
guy at all.
honestly, I'm solely indifferent, right? Because, like I said, regardless as to who or what, like in the previous articles from the last Black Tech Talk and the last Black Business Talk we did, there is literally millions and millions and millions of dollars funneling into micromobility. Damn, like literally, damn the administration. Like I'm looking at where the money is, right? And that's where I'm like, okay, we could get off into the weeds on this, but I'm kind of indifferent.
Well, let's think about this.
I just throw that in there because I just know. I just threw it in there because I know y'all hate. Well, I know Mike doesn't like
I wanted
Trump.
to actually address.
It's not that. It's not that I hate. It's not that I hate Trump. It's the people who support him for the wrong reasons. He's not. He was never a conservative, and so the idea that they identify as conservative and they support him, he's a New York liberal, and he always has been. But you notice he didn't win New York because New Yorkers know who he is. But everybody outside of New York sides with him for all the wrong reasons. And so I rag on those people because they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just supporting him because he's not a Democrat or he's not a lefty or whatever they want to call him. In reality, he is a liberal. He's a New York liberal. He always has been. And that's why he's running, the gamut the way he is now. Before he was against the vaccines. Now he's all about the vaccines.
That is some crazy shit. I see
right?
that he was
right. And plus, he gave trillions of dollars to these pharmaceutical companies to produce the vaccine. He gave billions of dollars to the airline industry when they were failing. Those companies should have failed. But when it came to black farmers, he told them to go screw. When it came,
why hasn't Biden gave him the black farmers the money then?
Because it has to go through the Senate.
But that guy, you can't put that onus on. If you put that onus on Trump, you got to put it on Biden as well. As far as
no, but I'm saying the ability to write off, to subsidize those failing industries, he found a way to do it. And so when it came to black businesses,
Biden do the same thing? Biden can do the same thing.
He can, but that was never his promise.
So, what do you mean? He did promise. He literally promised black people. He literally said. He had a whole plan for black people, like a temple, like a not that's true.
Oh,
he had
you're talking about the Build Back Better. And,
all that was in there.
They had to take the language out of it. Why? People like Mitch McConnell wanted to take it out of it. He wanted to
he did that because he lied. It was a send off. That's what it was. I don't got the niggas say he gonna do this. He ain't do it. It is what it is. That politician, like you said, they all lie. I just think that they should get the same smoke. The same smoke Trump gets, Biden got to get that same smoke because he's doing the same thing every other politician do. Like he ain't special. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, he's gonna be a one-term president, but he's one-term president because he won't be able to run again. But I don't think he has the capacity to do so. But with Trump, a lot of these people who were riding with him for all the wrong reasons. He was never going to do anything that he said he was going to do because he was incapable of doing it. There was no way he was going to be able to bring back factory jobs from China and bring it back to Indiana and Ohio and these other Rust Belt states. It was never going to happen. It was just out of the question because those companies had no interest in paying American labor to do that job when they can go down to China and go get it done for $4 an hour. That's what they were looking at.
Mm-hmm. All right, man. Look, we coming up on 2 hours, man. I got to cut it short, but I got to head in. I'm gonna do a couple hours with the JO. Let's get some final words, man.
I'll go. Appreciate you having me on, man. Great discussion. I learned some things, especially with the urban farming. Salute to you guys. Salute to Complex, Mike V, Super Tread. Y'all keep doing your thing, and man. Salute. Thanks.
All right, man. Appreciate you, Ramil.
Let me drop my channel. I plug everywhere.
Yeah, go ahead, man. No. I got you modded up.
Always call to actions, man. Shit.
Yeah. Go ahead, drop the channel. Man, I suck at the streaming stuff, dude. I don't be like having mods do stuff because, half the time I don't even be expecting like 50 plus people to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
All right, hey, appreciate you, Mike.
I'm gonna get out of here, man. Once again,
so please support Ramil's channel. Hey, man, I appreciate the collab once again, bro.
No problem, man. Salute. All right, y'all. Peace out. All right.
Yo, Triz, any last words, fam?
Last words. With the real estate market, people there's a lot of hesitancy with the rising interest rates, but a good deal is a good deal. Just because the interest rates are up doesn't mean that there aren't deals out there that make sense. So you just run the numbers and do the work.
Mhm.
And you just got to be ready. If there's something that's out there that's a good deal, no matter the climate, if it's a good deal, go for it. End of story.
Truer words can never been said. Salute to Super Triz. So, yeah, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. We, kind of wanted to chop it up and do some business modeling and just some research into what the new fourth industrial real estate market looks like, right? What are some of the convergences of tech, and real estate and community revitalization. How do we approach this, right, in such a way where we actually have a legit physical roadmap to not only securing our communities but also maintaining them and growing them over time, making them more efficient, making them make money for us, right? So that's what the purpose of this live stream is about. Want to salute Mike V, Ramil, Super Triz, and everybody that came through to check out this live stream. Share and like, with anybody that you think would be interested in this. And we'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.
Peace.